All right, as we are working with sellers, you've got your listing contract signed, you've gone active. This is awesome. Before you go active with that listing, there's a couple of nice things to make sure that you're staying connected with the sellers to prepare. So, sellers sometimes feel a little anxious about the idea of, hey, I've signed a listing contract. What's happening next? So, keeping them in touch of, hey, here's our next steps, here's our timeline is huge, making them feel comfortable. Before the listing goes active, I think it's a nice idea to send them a preview of the professional photos you had taken. So most photographers will have a link that they'll send you. And I usually like to send that to sellers and just say, hey, look at this. Your photos look great. I am so excited for you to go active. Also, let them know if there's a photo in there that's not super flattering, you will not be using it in the MLS. Just to make them feel better. Sometimes they'll grab a photo of like a cluttered space and like, you know what, we just don't need to use that photo. That's fine. But I think it's nice to send a photo preview to sellers ahead of time. Some sellers, especially ones who are like to be more hands-on, do like to see a draft of your listing description. So just keep that in mind. Some people say, hey, whatever you write is going to be fine. I don't care. This is great. I trust you 100%. And some people, even if they trust you, they want to see that draft ahead of time because it's going to make them feel more comfortable. So just know that some sellers would like to see that draft. They may have some input. They may ask you to make some changes. You only have 800 characters in the MLS. So reminding them of that, hey, we don't have unlimited pages here. You know, you can add some more of that information on social media in your post or leave something at the house. And you may want to gather an updates list from them too. So everything to know about the house will not fit into that listing description. So let them know that you can put together a list of updates, things that are really great to know, and you can upload that as a document to the MLS. Who's going to see that? People who are working with an agent. Who is working with an agent? Serious buyers. So just know that even if everything isn't fitting into your listing description, that you can have that separate updates list. The MLS will want to see it unbranded. So just know that when you upload it. And so make sure that you've connected with them about ages of roof, furnace, things to know. There's a lot of great examples out there that you'll see as you're scheduling showings for updates list. Take what you like. If you think it's really helpful to have, what's the average cost of their We Energies bill every month, put that in there as well. Anything that you think is going to be helpful for getting that house sold. This is where you get to kind of pull out some of that marketing flair and get the house ready to go. Make sure that when you do go active, you send a link from, it's nice to send it from MLS, but also do send it from your KW website. That's going to be the link that you're going to want to encourage your sellers to share on their social media. That's the one that you're going to want to share on your social media as well. Sometimes Facebook and our MLS links don't play well together. So if you use your KW website's link for that listing, that should share well, and it will also drive people to your website, which is going to be great for continuing to find more business. So make sure that you send that link when the listing goes live so that the seller is prepared and can be excited to see it. Know that they may have some feedback. They may ask you to make small changes. I don't take it personally. Sellers are usually on high alert as they're getting their house ready to sell. They want to make sure that everything is perfect. Who's the expert on the house? They are. They want you to become the expert too. So just take it with a grain of salt that they're just trying to make sure they're trying to help you show the house in its best light. Once your listing is active, hopefully you'll have showings scheduled right away. You're going to want to share any feedback and discuss any feedback from those showings that happen, from open houses. Let sellers know how many people came through the open house, any feedback that was shared. So make sure that you're discussing it. Sometimes feedback will come in that may not be super actionable. Somebody didn't like the floor plan. They didn't like the location. They didn't like the yard. They realize that they don't want to live on a busy street. Those are things that future pace your seller, knowing sometimes people will leave that information as a feedback, and know that you're not going to be able to change those things. You are not going to change the location of the house. You can't suddenly be on a quiet street instead of a busy street. You're not going to necessarily do a full renovation of the house, but any actionable feedback is really what we want to focus on. But also to know, does somebody think it's priced right? Did it show well? Those are things that I really want sellers to know. If you are at the point where you've had 10 showings and you haven't had a single offer yet, maybe, look at your feedback, but maybe that's a sign that the house is overpriced. 10 showings equaling one offer is a good ballpark to prepare sellers for. If there's not actionable feedback, something was wrong, didn't show well with the house, it really may be that the house, we've missed the mark on price. If you've gone, I would, the timeline is so tough because sometimes if you've gone your first weekend on the market and you don't have a single showing, that can also be a sign that the house is overpriced. If once the house is active, if in the neighborhood homes are selling more quickly and you don't have a showing scheduled, that could also be a sign that either something needs to change with the way that the house is being shown or that we're overpriced. So prepare sellers for that ahead of time, and it's going to make the conversation a lot easier when the time comes if you don't have offers in hand and you guys do need to do a price adjustment. And the thing that we really focus on with having that conversation is talking about how the market is showing us that, because we don't have offers scheduled, because we've had showings and the feedback has been that we're priced too high. Really, I think that what we're seeing is that we're due for a price adjustment to reactivate the listing, get buyers back through the house, and hopefully get an offer and get it sold. Some of this may also depend on what your sellers' motivation and timeline are. If they're putting the house on the market and they don't have to move right away, maybe they're fine with waiting a little bit longer to get the price that they're hoping for. But generally, days on market is the enemy of your price. So the longer something sits, the more a buyer is going to think either there's something wrong with it or they're going to think that it's overpriced and you're going to end up getting a lower offer if you get one. So just reminding sellers of that, but just know if their time frame is not super quick, they're not in a super rush, they may be okay with waiting a little bit, but keep having that conversation because chances are at that point in the current market, you may be overpriced. Even if you don't have any major changes, any major conversations to have with your seller, it is best practice to have at least a weekly phone call to check in with them, keeping them updated of things throughout the transaction, showings as you're going. Like, the best thing to do is to make it so that sellers are not feeling like they have to call you, like you are keeping them in touch. Sometimes people want more information than you have and they're just calling to check in, even if there's nothing to know, but future pace them to let them know that you will be checking with them at least weekly throughout the transaction, even if there's not a major update, just to let them know how things are progressing. Once you receive an offer, I think it's really helpful to break that offer down for sellers in a digestible way. So we've got some different ways that you can break it down in a spreadsheet. You can break it down through command. There's some pros and cons lists, whatever works best for you. But I think that the worst thing we can do is sit here with 3 offers and go through the stacks of paper for each offer because it's not going to be clear and cohesive to your sellers. So communication when you're working with sellers, when you receive offers, to break that down with them. Advise your clients on the pros and cons of offers. So there's not always going to be a clear winner as you're looking at multiple offers. Maybe you have just one offer in hand and hey, here's what I think about it. Here's some pros and cons. But just making sure that you're advising them on what you like and don't like about offers. Find out what their concerns are too. Sometimes I've had it where I find afterwards that sellers may be confused about what an appraisal or financing or FHA or if they see that, someone has an FHA loan and they feel very nervous about that. If it's a house that doesn't need work, there's no peeling paint, it's in great condition, FHA loan may not be a big deal if it's otherwise the best offer, but just advising them on pros and cons of any offers. And this is where the productivity program is going to help you to run through what concerns do I as your PC coach have about an offer? What are the pros? What might I want to change about an offer? Discuss with the seller what your offer response will be. Are you guys going to accept an offer? Are you going to send out a counter offer or a multiple counter offer? Or is the seller going to maybe accept one, reject the rest? Or maybe someone came in with a really lowball offer that your seller is not interested in. Make sure your seller knows that they are in the driver's seat. Your job is to be their fiduciary and to be an advisor to them. And ultimately, they get to decide what they accept, if they're going to send out a counter offer or if they're going to reject an offer. They're the driver. We're just here with them. So that is communicating with sellers as you are active before you accept an offer. Just being ready to keep communicating with them throughout the process. You want them to feel comfortable. The worst thing that could happen is a seller feels like they signed a contract with you and then you disappeared. You want to stay really you want to keep them in the loop. You want to keep them on top of things. You want to be future pacing them throughout, just being that fiduciary, being that guide as they are working through listing their property for sale and reviewing offers.